It is with great hesitation that I come with you regarding this current topic. I thought about it for a while, but I feel that it would be of benefit to share my thoughts with you regarding the incident at Charleston, South Carolina. This is, of course, dealing with the unfortunate shooting that happened at the Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church. This is an event that the entire nation, I would even venture to say, if not world, has mourned. It's left many of us emotionally baffled with what to do, with such feelings connected with such egregious hate and atrocious violence. It's interesting because I think, like many of you, when you first saw or expected to see Mr. Dylann Roof on television, you thought of just this crazy person who would do such a crazy thing as Mr. Roof has done. And that was, of course, the thought that crossed my mind, that this must be an insane individual. However, when I saw him on television, instead of looking at him and thinking of how crazy this individual was, I just immediately saw evil in his face, and especially in his eyes. And it brought to me immediately a book that I had read several years back, multiple times, because the book in fact was so powerful, titled People of the Lie by Dr. Scott Peck. And this psychiatrist basically breaks down several characteristics of people who he found to be people of the lie. These are individuals who he's treated, however he's identified. These are not people who could be helped by psychological treatment because they weren't mentally ill. Their sickness had far more to deal with that of a spiritual nature. These were people who were overturned spiritually by evil. And in fact, Dylann Roof looks just like the type of individual who he would have characterized in this book. So I looked especially at the case studies that he used and identified the 7 characteristics that not only the people in his book shared, but also Dylann Roof shared. So number 1 is this urge. They want to seek control over others. We know with Dylann Roof, first and foremost, he wanted to seek control over those 9 individuals who he killed by using a gun. He felt that was an easy way for him to do it. But far beyond that, he wants to seek control over all of us by terrorizing us with fear. So Dylann Roof definitely reflected that first characteristic of people of the lie by seeking control over others. The second characteristic is lacking empathy. Obviously, if someone is able to enter a church, a house, a building dedicated to God, and pray with saints who are in a meek position, and then pray on them with the violence, with the level of hate that he did, that is definitely someone who lacks empathy in that event. Thirdly, they tend to have a permeating problem toward negative behavior. And we know that Dylann Roof was someone who dwelled on negativity toward people of color. This became his lifestyle, the world in which he lived, one focused on division, destruction, and hate. So he definitely had a permeating problem toward negative behavior. Fourthly, they tend to strategically plan and calculate toward the wrongdoing of others. This was not a new plan of Dylann Roof's. In fact, he taught 6 months and beyond 6 months to people around him regarding what he was going to do. He is very clear in his direction, clear in his mind as far as what he had planned to do, and in fact did carry just that out. And fifthly, and I want to qualify by saying fifthly, this is something that is a characteristic not just of people of the lie, but they do tend to be in their own extreme area, and that is they tend to be atypical. Some will call them weirdos, if you will. They stand out somehow. You look at them and you say they don't look like the typical person. And the reason why they stand out is because they have a difficult time, for one, connecting with others, but they also have a difficult time accepting how other people live. So they tend to stand out with their level of evil dwelling, if you will. So we definitely know Dylann Roof that was someone who was atypical. He walked around with old guard, for example, using the old Rhodesian flag. He used old symbols that represented white dominance from years ago. He was very different from modern day, even thematic themes of acceptance that we tend to focus on today, even if we don't always accomplish acceptance, accomplish racial harmony, at least the mainstream says, hey, this is the goal. Someone like Dylan Roof says, this is not my goal. And so he was very atypical to modern and current society. And sixth point is they tend to not show remorse. And we know that Dylan Roof, even after he was arrested, did not show remorse for what he did. In fact, he actually had a smirk on his face, which would reflect that he was actually celebrating the atrocious violence that he committed on these people and the world, I might add. And seventhly, they tend to not be corrected by punishment. So even after Dylan Roof was arrested, put behind bars, seized the threat of living years behind bars and possibly even the death penalty, he still did not show that he was going to change his ways or wanted to change his ways. In fact, he still is a huge proponent of racial disharmony, of destruction, and of destroying people of color who are not like himself, of a white hue. So what we want to show are basically these 7 characteristics of people of the lie as identified by the psychiatrist Dr. Scott Peck. I hope that you benefited from this video, or at least found it interesting. If you know of anyone who you think might find it interesting as well or benefit from it, please share it with them. And I hope that you have a blessed day.